The air is thick with the smell of gunpowder and roasting corn. A wave of sound just washes over you. Thundering firecrackers, the deep clang of church bells, the relentless driving rhythm of drums, and music that seems to pull you right out of your skin and into the street. It's a symphony of color and faith and community. This festival, they call it El Celebro, isn't just a memory. It is alive, happening right now. And right there, that's the mystery. This celebration, so vibrant, so deeply rooted in traditions that feel so Mexican, especially its reverence for the Virgin of Guadalupe, is actually unfolding hundreds and hundreds of miles to the south, in a completely different country. How on earth did this piece of Mexico's soul find its home here, on a sun-drenched peninsula in Costa Rica? The answer, it turns out, isn't on any modern map. To find it, we have to learn to read a much, much older one that's written into the land itself. We're looking for the traces of an ancient human river, a slow, steady migration of people and language and culture that flowed southward for over 1,000 years. Our guide on this journey won't be a map made of paper and ink, but one made of the names of the places they touched. So the key that unlocks this whole mystery is a science called toponymy. It's the study of place names. And you should think of these names as historical fossils. The names of towns and rivers and mountains, they preserve, almost like amber, the language of the people who lived there centuries, even millennia ago. They're echoes from the deep past. And if we listen carefully, they have a remarkable story to tell. Now, this map doesn't show you modern roads or cities. It reveals something far, far older. See, each one of those dots represents a place name, specifically one that ends in the archaic Nahua suffix man. And just look at how they cluster along the Pacific coast, forming this long, thin artery stretching all the way from central Mexico down into Honduras. This, right here, is the first wave. These are the names of forts or garrisons. They're the markers of a vast trade network, set up by Nahua-speaking merchants centuries before the Aztecs were even a thought. A river of commerce flowing south. And now a second layer of history appears, written right on top of the first. The triangles and stars you see mark place names from a later and much more violent era, the time of the Mexica, what we call the Aztec Empire. These are names of conquest, names like Tlacoachalco, which means the place of the arsenal, or Cuautla, a tribute to their elite eagle warriors. So this isn't just about trade anymore. This is about power and tribute and military control. The Mexica literally built their empire along the very same arteries that those ancient merchants had traveled for centuries. So what we're seeing here isn't one, but two distinct waves of Nahua people flowing south. First, an ancient one, driven by commerce, leaving behind a trail of trading posts. And then, a much later one, driven by imperial ambition, establishing military control. Together, they represent more than 1,000 years of continuous culture, language, and people flowing from the very heart of Mexico deep into Central America. This is the source of that ancient river, and this is why we find echoes of Mexico so far from its modern borders. This complex world, this web of rivalries and tribute, of ancient trade routes and new empires, was about to be struck by a cataclysm. The arrival of the Spanish wasn't just a conquest, it was a continental aftershock that would shatter the old world and rearrange every single piece in violent and often very unexpected ways. First, we really have to get our heads around what the Mexica Empire actually was. It was nothing like the Roman Empire, with legions and governors directly ruling huge territories. No, it was more of a hegemonic system. The Mexica and their allies dominated this whole patchwork of city-states, demanding tribute, goods, food, even people. But many of these peoples, like the powerful Tlaxcalans, were never truly conquered. They were bitter enemies, just waiting, biding their time for a chance to strike back. You see, Hernan Cortés and his small band of conquistadors didn't arrive in some unified, stable empire. They walked right into a political powder keg. Their arrival was the spark. The fall of the Aztec capital Tenochtitlan in 1521 wasn't just one isolated event. It was an explosion whose aftershock radiated across all of Mesoamerica, shattering the old balance of power forever. And here we come across one of history's great ironies. You might think the fall of the Aztecs would mean the end of Nahua influence. But in fact, the exact opposite happened. The rivals of the Mexica, people like the Tlaxcalans, who were also Nahua speakers, allied themselves with the Spanish. Suddenly empowered with steel swords, horses, and new political authority, they became the vanguard of colonization, pushing both north and south. The Nahua world didn't vanish at all. The river of culture simply burst its banks and flowed into new, wider channels. As this brand new world was being forged in violence and in alliance, a new spiritual symbol was born. It was one that would capture the very soul of this mixture of peoples, a figure that could hold the memory of the old world and the faith of the new, all in a single image. The Spanish conquistadors, you see, they carried with them their own Virgin of Guadalupe from a region in Spain called Extremadura. She was a carved statue, white-skinned, an icon of the conquerors. But then in Mexico, another Guadalupe appeared, and she wasn't a statue, but an image miraculously imprinted on a simple cloth. And most importantly, she was a Virgen Morena, a dark-skinned virgin. Her face wasn't the face of the conquerors from Europe. It was the face of the people of this new world. And where did she appear? On a hill called Tepeyac, just outside what is now Mexico City. Now, this was no random spot. For centuries, this very hill had been the site of a major temple to a Nahua mother goddess named Tonantzin, a name that means our little mother. The old mother was gone, but a new one appeared in the very same sacred place. This is what we call syncretism, the blending of beliefs, in its most powerful, most visible form. This beautiful old quote just perfectly captures her dual identity. In her name and in her role as the mother of the new faith, she carries the legacy of Spain. But in her skin, in the place of her birth, and in the hearts of her followers, she is Tonantzin. She is Indian. She has two hearts, one Spanish and one Mexican, beating as one. The story of Mexico, as we see now, isn't contained within its borders. It's a story that flows through time and across the continent, and it's alive. Alive in the names of mountains, in the taste of corn, and in the thunder of firecrackers at a festival in Costa Rica. It reminds us that history isn't something dead, buried in ruins and museums. What if? What if the greatest libraries of all are the living traditions we still celebrate? If only we learned how to read them. Basta. This is Mexico.
If something here opened a door, stay and subscribe. Basta is the second look. Mexico without the filter, without the shortcuts. New episodes every Tuesday and Saturday. See our suggested video right there in the box.